Today we're going to be working with a screeching halt. So this is going to be kind of your notes for what we're going to do the next day. So let's look at the word problem. It says when a car must make a sudden stop, it often leaves skid marks on the pavement. So it says, is there any way to tell the skid mark how fast a car was going before it put on its brakes? So what it says is the equation S equals the square root of 30 FD can be used to estimate the speed. So S is in miles per hour. A car must have been traveling in order to make the skid that measures D feet in length. The F in the equation is a coefficient of friction that depends on the road's conditions. For a typical street, we can use F equals 0.6. So what they did is they're going to place 0.6 in for F. So it says, or here, S is equal to the square root of 30 times 0.6 D. And that can also be rewritten. If you multiplied the 30 times the 0.6, you would have the square root of 18D. So go ahead and write that in the blank. Okay, so the next part, what we're looking at is the table. So it gives us the distance. So we have 20 all the way to 200. And then we have the speed. So what I want you to do is take these X values, the 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 150, and 200, and we're going to plug that in for D. And plug that into your calculator, and let's see what we get. The easiest way to do this, if you go to y equals and you type in 18x, or the square root of 18x, go to your table. So if I hit second graph, and we can actually look at the point. So if I scroll all the way down until I get to 20, at 20, notice I have 18.974. So if we just estimate, you're going to have about 19. So I want you to go through the table, and we're going to look at 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 150, and 200. So go ahead and fill out the rest of this chart. So your tables should match mine. So go ahead and copy down these coordinate points. Now if we scroll down a little bit further, look at our graph. It says use a graphing calculator to complete the table and sketch the graph for this function. So what I want you to do is take these coordinate points that we have, and we're going to plot them on the graph. Now what it does is, just like we did in the last assignment, it changes your window. So when you go to the calculator and we hit the window button, where it says X min, it tells me to change it to 0. Where it says X max, it tells me to change it to 220. My X scale is going to be 20. Where it says the Y minimum is 0, the Y maximum is going to be 70, and my Y scale is going to be 10. Okay, so once you change the window to match that, when you hit graph, your graph on your paper is going to match what you see here in the calculator. So again, go ahead and plot those points. And it says use the trace and table features to answer the following questions. So go ahead and sketch this, and then let's look at these questions. Okay, so your graph should look something similar to mine. So again, that's my square root graph. Okay, so let's look at the first question. It says a dog ran out in front of your car. You slammed on your brakes and left a 15-foot skid mark. About how fast were you going? So using the same equation, the square root of 18D, what am I going to do with the 15? You should say that I'm going to plug in 15 for D. So I have Y equals the square root of 18, and instead of D, I'm going to plug in the number 15. So when you multiply that out, your speed is approximately 16.4 miles per hour. Okay, and the distance was 15 feet. It told that to me in the problem. Okay, so let's look at question number 2. Question number 2 says a second car almost ran into the back of you, but was able to stop after making a 108-foot skid mark. If the speed limit was 45 miles per hour, was this driver speeding? Okay, so the way we can actually check that, my distance, it tells me in the problem is 108 feet. So if I plug in to the same equation, 108 for my distance, let's approximate and see where approximately my miles per hour would end up. So if I multiply that out in the calculator, I end up with approximately 44 miles per hour. So it tells me the speed limit was 45 miles an hour. So were they speeding? No, they were not speeding. Okay, so let's look at the last question. The last question says a third car was going 48 miles per hour when it slammed on its brakes. How many feet will it take this car to skid? So here you're actually given the miles per hour. So that's going to actually be my Y. So I have 48 equals the square root of 18D, and we're trying to find the distance. So if I have the square root, how can I get rid of something that's square rooted? I'm going to actually square both sides. So what I should end up with when I plug in 48 squared into my calculator is 2,304 is equal to 18D. Again, the square root and the squared cancel each other out. My last step is to divide both sides by 18. And when I plug that into the calculator, I'm going to get 128 feet. So my distance was 128 feet, and it gave me the speed. It already said I was at 48 miles per hour. Okay, so you're going to use this in order to answer some questions in class tomorrow.